Welcome to the Killer Author Club. 3 best-selling authors talking about killing, of the fictional kind, with the best thriller and suspense authors in the business. Killer conversations, killer cocktails, and killer guests, with your hosts, Kimberly Bell, Heather Gutenkopf, and Kara Ruda. This is the Killer Author Club.
Hello and welcome to the Killer Author Club, your favorite haunt for all things murder, mystery, and mayhem. Tonight, we are so excited to welcome the one and only Tessa Wegert to the Killer Author Club hot seat. We have all the questions about In the Bones, so buckle up and get ready to kill the lights. I'm Killer Kimberly Bell.
I'm Killer Tessa Wegert.
I'm Killer Heather Gutenkopf.
And I'm Killer Kara Ruda.
And before we dive into Tessa's book, a couple of quick PSAs. Tonight's show will be available this Friday as a podcast, including bonus content just for listeners. Find the links at killerauthorclub.com. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter so you are the first to hear all our killer breaking news. And now, Heather, would you please introduce our guest?
I'd be honored. Tessa Wegert is the critically acclaimed author of the Shanna Merchant Mysteries, as well as the North Country series, beginning with In the Bones. Her books have received numerous starred reviews and have been featured on PBS and NPR radio. A former journalist and copywriter, Tessa grew up in Quebec and now lives with her husband and children in Connecticut, where she co-founded Sisters in Crime Connecticut and serves on the board of International Thriller Writers. Tessa, welcome to the Killer Author Club.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a dream of mine, honestly, to chat with you three. So I'm just very excited about tonight.
Yeah, well, we're very excited too. And maybe you can start us off by telling us a little bit about In the Bones.
Yes, sure. I would love to. So it is spring in the Thousand Islands of upstate New York, otherwise known as the North Country. And things are getting strange. Some of the summer people are coming back to open their homes up for the season and discovering strange items missing from their homes that were there in the fall and aren't there now. And then things get even stranger when a woman is discovered hiding in one of the occupied homes and apparently found some bones in the basement. And so the police get involved and it kind of spirals from there. I can talk a lot about the inspiration for this book because it's kind of a crazy story. And yeah, it's just the first book in the North Country series. So what's interesting, I guess, and unique about it is that it's a spin-off series from the Shanna Merchant books. So there are a lot of the same characters and then some new additions as well. A lot of the same general regional settings, but you know, fresh perspective on things, because this book is written from multiple points of view versus the previous books in the Shanna series, which were a single narrator. So yeah, I thought I would kind of mix things up and hopefully readers will be excited about seeing things through a fresh lens.
Oh, I know they are going to be. We're so excited to talk more about it. And so listeners, make sure you get chatty and start dropping your questions into the comments. But Kara, can you tell us what we're drinking tonight?
You know, I'd love to, Heather. Okay, tonight's drink is the Riverside Rosemary Mule, chosen by Tessa herself. Okay, Tessa, please tell us why you chose this drink as tonight's killer cocktail.
Okay, I have one here, complete with the little rosemary sprig. It's actually very delicious. I picked it because of the name. It's called the Riverside Rosemary Mule, and it was actually created, I believe, by a local distillery up in the Thousand Islands. And so when you make it, you're supposed to use, of course, the St. Lawrence Spirits vodka rather than just any old generic vodka. And it's delicious and refreshing and kind of good all year long, not necessarily a seasonal cocktail. And so it seems like the perfect fit.
Perfect. And thank you for making one. And cheers. I have a paper cup.
Cheers.
Sorry about that. Okay, cheers.
Cheers, cheers. Okay, so we created the Killer Author Club so readers could get up close and personal with your favorite thriller writers. This season's lineup is stacked with killers. Nicole Bart, our very own Killer Heather, Jilly McMillan, Lee and Andrew Child, you might have heard of them. The killer brothers responsible for a big guy, Jack Reacher. And for dates, times, past episodes, and our Killer 2026 lineup, which is hot off the press and newly uploaded to the website, go to killerauthorclub.com after the show, because tonight it's all about In the Bones. Wegert expertly casts suspicion on one character after the next, but the climactic reveal is likely to take even the canniest readers by surprise. Here's to the promised sequels. That's from Kirkus Reviews. Stephanie Roble says, prepare to neglect your job, your pets, and your errands, because In the Bones is impossible to stop reading. Wegert is a master plotter. Just when you think you've solved her puzzle, she wrong-foots you again. An absolute knockout. So Tessa, clearly you are a devious and chilling killer. And now we need to know your answer to the killer question. Where do you kill?
Okay, so I guess I have two answers really to this question. So if I'm taking it literally, I'm doing it right here in this room, which is the attic, third floor room in my house. It has actually a secret room in it, which is like a reading nook that you get to through like a tiny little secret kind of hobbit-sized door. No one ever comes up here, honestly. It's just kind of my own private space. And so I'm up here for hours and hours. However, I also kill in the Thousand Islands, because so far all of the books that I have published have been set in that region.
Can you tell me where the Thousand Islands are?
Yeah.
And is it named after the dressing? Because I feel really dumb. Is that
Or
really
the other way around?
Don't feel dumb, because that is 100% true. So first question, the Thousand Islands are all the way upstate, as far as you can go before you hit Canada. So the St. Lawrence River is partly in Ontario and partly in upstate New York. And in that river, there are, I believe it's actually not 1,000, it's more like 1,864 islands. Some are on the Canadian side, some are on the US side. Many of them are privately owned, and there are just like, there's just a single home on one of these islands. And so it seemed like an interesting place to me to set books, because I had been going there. My husband's parents have a place up there on an island, like it's just their cottage on the little 3-acre island. And so every time I went up there, I thought, God, there's so much atmosphere here. And it's so interesting to think about, what if a crime occurred on an island? So that's a theme in a lot of the books. Like, what if, the crime scene is actually on the island? How would the police address that? What would happen? And then the Thousand Islands dressing situation is that there's a famous hotel up there. And there is a gentleman who used to be affiliated with that hotel and also with the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. And he, while he was in the Thousand Islands, invented, this is the general story that we've heard. I think it's kind of like an urban legend to some degree, but apparently he created it while he was in the Thousand Islands and brought the recipe back to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York and introduced it as Thousand Islands dressing. And so that was where it took off, really, was in New York, because that's where he brought the recipe.
Right, but based on the islands.
But based on being there in that area. Yeah. Exactly.
I love that. So not a crazy question at all, Heather.
No, in fact, I get that a lot.
I learned something new.
All right. So when we were talking about your book earlier, you said you had some interesting motive, or like where the story spark came from. You had
the origin story, I guess it would be. So a few years ago, I watched a documentary series about frogging, as in PHROGGING. And I had never heard of it before. And what it is, for those who aren't familiar, it's like squatting, except it's done in occupied homes. So instead of someone coming into an empty home and living there, uninvited, trespassing and being there, they sneak into a home that the homeowner lives in right now, and they hide out like in an attic crawl space or in a basement or wherever. Sometimes it's like under the front porch. They're all sometimes it's in the walls. There are all kinds of places that people have managed to hide in these occupied homes. And then the reason why it's called frogging is because they only stay for a short period of time before moving on to another house, because they don't want to get caught. And so the documentary was all about different people who had experienced Froggers in their homes and how they started to feel like at first they thought maybe there was a ghostly presence, like weird things were happening, food disappearing from the fridge, strange noises from the attic, stuff like that. Then eventually in each of these anecdotes, in each of these scenarios, of course, it came to be that someone really was hiding in the home. So I am a very paranoid person.
That is terrifying.
Now we're all paranoid.
Right? Like, this is my moment to say, I hope I don't sound dumb, but honestly, it was terrifying to me to think. And to this day, I always check my basement when I'm away for like a few days, or if I've even been out for the day. My son, we have like a bulkhead door and he plays hockey. So he's always bringing his gear in and out of the basement. And I'm always checking to make sure that door is locked. And then of course, like going around and peering behind like Halloween boxes and stuff to make sure there's no one lurking in there. So anyway, I had that whole experience of watching the series, and it really made me wonder who would do something like this, right? Like what kind of circumstances would have to occur? What kind of mindset do you have to be in to do something so reckless and so invasive? And so that was where the idea for the story came. That was kind of the kernel of the idea, was what if somebody did have to do this, and the Thousand Islands would be a good place to do it because they could get in the off season when there was no one in the home. But now they're there and the people are moving back for the summer. So, you know, where does that lead, and then the next question, because I'm always trying to, of course, as we all are, throw conflict into the mix. The next question was, what if while that person was hiding inside a home, they discovered evidence of a crime that they weren't involved in? Maybe. No spoilers.
Didn't you just mention that you have like a little tiny crawl space behind you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
A secret room where someone could be living right now.
Yeah.
That is the thing. I hear, like, it's an old house. This house is like 120 years old. So I hear creaking and like the boards settling, and I'm just lying in bed looking up at the ceiling thinking what's going on up there or what's going on in the basement. So it's a good book for spooky season, I would say, considering that it does have some eeriness to it and there are some pretty chilling moments. I agree. Basements are scary no matter what.
Right. Definitely creepy. Everybody already is terrified. Thank you for all of your descriptions. Yeah. Everyone's just like creepy. And you say it with a smile too, which makes it all go down even more creepy.
That's right.
I know.
Yeah.
But you have some great characters. You have an ex-NHL star, Mikko Heli, whose house is the subject of the book, and he, you know, the shocking discovery in his basement, and Nicole Durham, who is hired as Miko's cleaner under kind of tense circumstances. Can you tell us a little bit about those characters and why you positioned them the way you did?
Yeah. So with the previous book, The Coldest Case, I had some Instagram influencers in the mix, and I'm always really interested in looking at like the juxtaposition of fame and like smaller local communities that really haven't experienced anything close to that, right? And so this is a community of small river towns all up and down the St. Lawrence. So I was interested by the idea of introducing this celebrity NHL star, recently retired, has kind of a reputation for being a party guy, and he introduces himself into the community, and then what is the fallout, right, of having this pseudo celebrity there, especially when his path starts to cross with some of the locals, with parties and various things happening at his house. And the Nicole Durham character, that was really fun, because when I made the decision and pitched to my editor that I wanted to do a spin-off series, she said, you know, it'll be interesting to see who you choose to keep and who you introduce and their role in like the whole dynamic between the characters that I had already established in the 6 previous Shayna books. And Nicole Durham is actually the sister of a character from those previous books, a pretty major character, Sheriff Maureen McIntyre, who goes by Mac. So this is her sister. And up until this point, readers who read all of the Shayna books or any of the Shayna books wouldn't know even that she has a sister. So this is the first time that you find out a little bit about her family, that character's family. even though it's a character that you've spent a lot of time with over the course of those other 6 books. So that was fun to really think about what her relationship would be with her sister, what her sister would be like, what her sister's daughters would be like. One of the daughters plays a really big part in the book. And yeah, so it's been a kind of a challenge to decide who to kind of keep alive and and then who to introduce. But it's been really fun. And to answer Amanda's question, they can be read as standalones. I always recommend trying to read them in order, just because you do get some spoilers if you read them out of order. But readers tell me all the time that they started with book 5 or book 6 and it was fine. So I think you could do either one.
So I want to know a little bit about your process, just because you had, I don't remember how many points of view you wrote from in this particular story, but a bunch, right?
Yeah.
So how do you keep track of all the POVs and all the characters and who knows what and who's revealing what, where? Like, how do you keep track of all that?
Yeah, I honestly didn't have a ton of experience writing multiple point of view thrillers, and I have always loved them. And I think I was intimidated, honestly. And then with the Shayna books, because I wrote that first book intending, really, Death in the Family is the first book in the series. I intended it for it to be a standalone, and then had the opportunity to make it into a series. And so that was just the path that I was on. So I didn't really divert from that at all. I didn't try anything with multiple narrators until I got to this book and this point. And so at first I started writing kind of like chronologically, in a linear fashion, just like telling the story, but then having some scenes from a different character's point of view. And that, I'm curious to know with you guys what your process is like with this, but I found that got confusing for me really quickly. So in the end, I ended up largely writing the points of view separately, like all of the scenes from Nicole's perspective, all of the scenes from Tim Wellington's perspective, and then just kind of retrofitting them and slotting them into place. And then, of course, editing, revising, making changes so that the timeline all made sense. But I found that was the easiest way for me to keep track of what was happening with those characters, not just, from like a timeline perspective, but really also emotionally and psychologically where they were with the case, like where they stood emotionally with the case. And it seemed like it was effective. I'm doing the same thing right now with the second book in that series. So I think I'm just going to run with it. What's your approach, guys?
I think we all three have a different process for this, right? I'm the hardcore outliner of the group. So I have a pretty strong outline going into the story, but so I don't need to write them necessarily in order. I'll kind of piggyback and leapfrog my way through the story. Mm-hmm. But it can get confusing if you don't, for me, it can get confusing for me if I don't have a roadmap.
Yeah. No roadmap.
Wow.
Just wings it.
Yeah. I know that's just not an acceptable answer, but that's the truth anyway. And Heather's in the middle.
I'm right in the middle. I do a combo. Yes.
I think I'm in the middle too. I do outline a little bit to a point, and then I just allow myself to be really flexible about it, and pretty much 9 times out of 10 go totally off that path to somewhere completely unexpected.
That's where the fun is. Okay,
I
have a great question from Jean. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cool to live and own a bookstore in the areas you're writing about. I also find myself as a reader trying to figure out where the places are that you've renamed, such as Nellie's and Clayton. Love your books.
Yeah. Okay, Jean, we need to connect if you own a bookstore in the area, because I thought I had a handle on all the bookstores in the area. So we gotta talk afterward. So Nellie's is Bella's, actually. It was based on Bella's in Clayton. And I do sometimes change the names of businesses. Much of the setting is true to life. So I do not change the names of the towns. A lot of times I don't change the names of major landmarks. I only change something if I want to have like a little creative license there to make changes with like the layout of the place or the menu or something like that, because I think otherwise people who know it well are going to go, but that's not it. That's not true. So I can't stay too true to life sometimes. And then the other reason is if there's a crime that occurs in that place, then I'm never going to use an actual business name just out of respect to the business owners, right? So yeah, it's kind of a mix, but it's really fun to decide which of the places I want to keep as is. And like there's a place called The Spot in Alexandria Bay, but I think I call it The Dot in a couple of the books. And it's pretty obvious that for those in the know in the area, it's pretty obvious what it is. But I think that's kind of some of the fun. And I do try to incorporate some Easter eggs for people who know that region really well. And then I think they get, like I've heard that they get a kick out of trying to connect those dots. The blankets on the chairs. Exactly. So Bella's has, oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I do know about this. The story, Teresa. Oh, amazing.
That's so fun. That's so fun. I love like all those connections, and that's like so much part of the fun of the Killer Author Club, being able to like connect people and like have their Anyway, it's fun.
It's so fun.
Yeah. So how many of? Oh, sorry, Heather. Did you want to go?
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering if you, as far as the plotting and planning thing, do you know how many in this series you're going to write?
No, that would be nice, wouldn't it? No, I have never known. So like I said, with Death in the Family, I wrote it as a standalone, really as like an homage to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. And I never in a million years thought about turning it into a series or having a sequel or anything. I think because before I was published, I wrote 3 books that were never published, like an entire trilogy that never was published. So by the time I got to Death in the Family and it was acquired, I was like, I'm doing one and done. And like, I'll come up with a new idea because I put in all that time. And I really think of those books as my practice books now. And I think they served a purpose, and I appreciate the experience of having written them. But it was a lot of time and effort to put in for 3 books that never were published. So I didn't have any expectations at all with Death in the Family. And then it was picked up as a 2-book deal. And then after that, it was kind of like a book here, 2 books there, 2 books there, you know, another contract for 1 book in the Shayna series and 1 book in the new series. And so I have never really known. And with each new opportunity and new contract, I just sit down and think about where I've been with the series and what, you know, groundwork I've already laid. And I have to mine that for new story ideas, because you can't change what's already there, right? And so even with this new series, because so much of it is related to the previous series, some of the characters, like if I want to bring them back, those characters have backstories. I can't, you know, stray from that. I have to be true to what I've already done. So it does get a little bit tricky for a long time. I just also was winging it, and I had like it was ridiculous. I had a bunch of index cards that said like, you know, specific dates and like birth dates of characters and stuff. And I was all over the place. And just recently with this first book in the new series, I sat down and created like a very extensive kind of North Country, Thousand Islands universe spreadsheet with all the characters and their connections to everyone and all of that connective tissue between them that I was just relying on my memory for, and like leafing back through previous books that were already done and out in the world. And that felt stressful because I didn't want to make a mistake. So from now on, it took me 6 books to get there, but from now on, I'm going to be much more organized about it.
Smart. So you have a series Bible. That's what they call them,
exactly.
right?
I have a series Bible. Yeah. Finally, I have that. And I don't know. I think I'm just really impatient, and the writing is the part that I like the best, which is another reason why I don't do a ton of planning up front. So I just dive in and then, you know, fill in the blanks when I need to. But it's so much easier already having that series Bible to reference whenever I need to.
And you're already writing the 2nd book, right? Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay.
And I do have ideas for others that I'm going to propose. So we'll see where that goes.
So exciting. Well, we cannot wait. We cannot wait for the moment. But Killer Tessa is giving away 2 copies of In the Bones to 2 lucky US viewers. So it doesn't matter where you're watching. We scour the comments everywhere we stream, but please make sure to shout out where you're from when you answer this question. And first I have to do the give a yay. Okay.
Nice.
Very important thing.
Okay.
Question is, where does In the Bones take place? So answer that question and you may be a lucky winner.
And just think of your salad dressing, I think. Okay. Okay. The Killers are big fans of independent booksellers, and we want to send them all the support. Tessa has chosen Barrett Bookstore in Darien, Connecticut as her killer store tonight. Tessa, tell us why you love this bookstore so much.
Oh God, I feel so lucky to have an independent bookstore in my town, and not only in my town, but 5 minutes from my house. So I am there so often that at one point I was getting mail there. I went in one day and they were like, "We have a letter for you. We're not sure why it's here, but someone sent it to you here at the bookstore." So Barrett is the best, and that's hard to say in a way because there are so many amazing independent bookstores. And even though I picked Barrett, I want to give a shout out to the Little Bookstore up in the Thousand Islands too, because they provide. Rebecca at the Little Bookstore provides books for almost all the events I do in that area. But Barrett, I actually have an event coming up on November 4th on my launch day, which is going to be super fun. So if anyone is in the Darien, Fairfield County, Connecticut area, Corinne Jade, who wrote the Astrology House, and Sophie Jouanneau, who wrote the French Honeymoon, are both going to be there with me in conversation that night. So it's like a triple header about domestic suspense and stories involving marriage and lies and secrets and all that good stuff. So it should be really fun.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. All right, we'll be dropping the link in the comments so you can order In the Bones along with any others that you'd like on your wish list from Barrett Bookstore. So, and bookshop.org.
Yes.
Yay, thank you.
Obviously, the Killers love to read, and we love it when you share what you're reading in our Facebook group. Post pictures, write reviews, ask for recommendations, and give yours. Tonight, though, we want to know, Tessa, what are you reading?
So I have two books to talk briefly about. The first is Such a Clever Girl by Darby Kane, which comes out very soon, January 26th. And it's set in Sleepy Hollow, first of all, which that immediately sold me. It's set in Sleepy Hollow. It involves a family going missing from their mansion, kind of in a wooded area. And then the other family members kind of coming together as the inheritance becomes in play for them. It's got, and she always does like a bit of a legal thriller element to it, which I think is fantastic. So it's like a domestic thriller, but it's also a mystery with some legal elements to it. I can't recommend it highly enough. And I'm just about to start. I can't say much about it yet because I haven't read it yet, but
I just got mine today
to read Deborah Goodrich Royce's Best Boy, which just came in the mail, and it looks amazing. And not only because of this, does this not remind you of the Home Alone house? The second I saw it, I was like, oh yeah. So yeah, but also like a super creepy version of it, right? Yeah. Like in the fall time. Yeah, I'm really pumped about this one.
In the fall time.
And Deborah will be coming by the Killer Author Club next year. I don't remember the date, but it's on our website, so you can find it and mark it.
KillerAuthorClub.com.
And we also have two fabulous new releases that we want to celebrate tonight. First, we have You Belong Here by Megan Miranda. So it's twisty, tense, and atmospheric thriller featuring Miranda's signature anxiety-inducing twists, a small town with big secrets and chilling, evocative writing. And then we have What the Dead Can Do by Peter Roche. A young child's fate is at stake in a deadly battle between his deceased parents in a dark, psychological, speculative thriller tinged with horror. So perfect for spooky season, both of them. Megan is giving away 5 copies of You Belong Here, and Peter is giving away 2 copies of What the Dead Can Do to U.S. viewers. Comment if you want in and tell us where you're from. Good luck. And because we are all about shamelessly plugging our own work, don't miss the Killer's latest reads.
That's right. Kara's got We Were Never Friends, a sorority reunion that takes a very, very dark turn. Pre-order now before the party gets started.
And speaking of deadly party, Heather's serving up the perfect host, an over-the-top gender reveal party that explodes in more ways than one, coming in November really soon. So pre-order now.
Yes, and Kimberly's taking you on a deadly European getaway in the expat affair. 2 Americans, the glittering diamond trade in danger in Amsterdam.
That's right. And it's $1.99 right now on Kindle. So if you go get the ebook, it's a good deal.
Deals, deals, deals. We have giveaways. We got deals. We got everything. Okay.
Those are all some very killer reads, I will say.
Aw, thank you, Tessa. Okay. And wait, there's more. Okay. So if you hang out on Facebook, come join our secret lair, the private members only Killer Author Club. Every episode, we draw a name randomly from the hat for some killer swag like t-shirts, mugs, candles, you name it. Jump in and join the fund and peek at all the goods over at killerauthorclub.com. Tonight's winner is Janice Murphy Roberts. Congratulations. Please send one of us killers your address and we'll send some fun killer author swag your way. And want to be the next winner? Join us. So click on the link and become a member. Also, a big killer thanks to Book Reporter for sharing the murdery love. Stay up to date on bookish news and events at bookreporter.com.
So, Tessa, we have some excellent news for you. You have survived the Killer Author Club.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yay. All right. You guys, that was so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Not at all scary, right?
Not at all scary. Not as scary as Froggers, anyway.
That's right. So tell us where our listeners and viewers can find you.
Sure. So I am most active on Instagram, which is just Tessa Wegert. I'm also on Facebook at Tessa Wegert Books, and I'm on TikTok occasionally at Tessa Wegert Books also. And then my website is tessawegert.com. I have a ton of events coming up in October, late October, and early November, and I'm all over the place. So if you are in the area, I would love to see you come out to one of those events. And those are all on my news and events page on the site.
Love it.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you, Tessa. And that's a wrap for tonight's episode. Thanks for hanging out with all of us. We'll be back in 2 weeks with the wonderful Nicole Bart in the Killer Hot Seat, spilling all the details on her new thriller, Where He Left Her. Until then, you can catch us wasting entirely too much time on Instagram, Facebook, and once in a while TikTok. For the full schedule, past episodes, recipes, and merch, head to killerauthorclub.com. And thanks for being part of the club.
Yay.
That does it for tonight's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to catch our next show live, we're every other Tuesday night on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For times, upcoming schedule, and to catch up on past episodes, visit us at killerauthorclub.com. Happy reading. Now get on out there and kill that TBR.